Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think we have to give credit to the Chancellor for a budget that, in terms of political presentation, was very, very clever. I think the SNP have had an absolutely rotten day. I think the decision to put money into potholes was clever. The fuel duty-frees, very, very welcome, especially for those living in rural parts of our country. But for me, the big one, of course, is the 1p a pint off draft beer, which I've worked out will save me over £1 a week, so I'm particularly thrilled with that. But economically, I sat listening to the numbers.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Thinking this budget is illiterate. I don't know who's doing the sums, whether perhaps it's the Right Honourable Member for Hackney North, but the sums do not work. And the markets now agree with me, because just in the last couple of hours, we've seen a very substantial spike in gilt yields. We're not quite yet back to 2022 with that mini budget, but clearly people are saying this isn't going to work. And even more concerning, I suppose, is that the new head of the Office for Value for Money, David Goldstone, has served for many years on the board of HS2, which I would suggest is the very opposite of value for money.
This point of order will be relevant. Can you confirm it's going to be relevant?
I think it is relevant, Madam Deputy Speaker. The honourable gentleman mentioned the member for Hackney North. I just wondered whether he had actually warned her that he was going to be mentioned in the chamber.
I thank the honourable member for the point of order. However, that is not a point of order. It is a courtesy of the House. Nigel Farage.
Nice try. I was just gently teasing, that was all. Invest, invest, invest is what we heard at the start of this budget speech, and I thought, yes, that's what we need, absolutely. Not just the big multinationals that come to smart conferences, but equally, hundreds of thousands of people putting their own risk capital into start-ups, into new businesses. But no, this invest, invest, invest is going to be done by the Chancellor on our behalf. Not just a top economist at the Bank of England, but she's now going to be the fund manager of the nation, investing money and trying to pick winners. And I would suggest the last time governments attempted back in the 1970s to invest money and pick winners, it ended very badly indeed. I will give way.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, and I just question, when he talks about investment in our country and in businesses, whether he'd prefer to have investment from our government or whether he'd prefer to have investment from maybe the Russian government.
Maybe one or two members of the House ought simply to grow up, but there we are. It's a bit sad. And I've worked in private business myself, and I do wonder, I do think picking winners is wrong. I think we leave this to the free market, and we let people either make money or we let them lose money. And frankly, if they do their dough, well, that's just the way these things work. Any business employing 5 or more people has today been hammered. And I make the point that I've set up companies and run companies. Nobody on the front bench has ever worked in private business. Nobody on the front bench understands what genuine risk capital is. Our business secretary, from what I can make out, has never even had a job. But the most dismal part, no, I've had plenty of jobs. Well, apart from being in the European Parliament, which doesn't really count, obviously. But I got to tell you, what is dismal about this budget is the growth forecast. If the ambition of our Chancellor is that in 4 years' time, growth should be 1.5%, that is very, very bad news for everybody, and particularly because it takes no account of the rise in population that will happen through legal immigration. It basically means a rise of 0. And nobody's even mentioned today the fact that gross domestic product per capita, wealth per capita, has been falling consistently nearly every single quarter for the last 2 years. The bigger our population becomes, the poorer we are becoming. And that's a reality we've got to wake up to. But I would say this. The big picture is We're in decline. We're getting poorer. There isn't a £22 billion black hole. That's nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion. Our debt repayments are 90 billion a year. And from all the figures I've seen today, that will be worse in 5 years' time than it is today. We need a complete change of culture. We need to start saying success is a good thing. Making money is a great thing. People becoming rich is something we should encourage. We've got to change our culture of work. The idea that, oh yes, work from home, do a 4-day week, get your work-life balance right. Well, you know what, actually, why don't we say to people, young people, hard work is a good thing. Yeah. Hard work is the only way anybody succeeds individually. And hard work is the only way we're going to have a chance as a country to turn any of this around. We're in much deeper trouble. Now, you keep on going. Please sit down, honestly. You've had a go. We are in much deeper trouble than anybody on either front bench dares to admit. It's a reality we should all face. And I have to say that, for a Labour Party that couldn't define what a woman was, couldn't define what a working person was, well, after today, I'm pretty convinced they can't define what economic growth is. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome to Britain Underneath, the place where we pull back the heavy velvet curtains of Westminster to uncover the real arithmetic governing our lives. So if you appreciate sharp, uncompromising political analysis, please consider subscribing to the channel now and supporting our work. Because together, we are diving straight into the theatrical absurdity of British governance. Look beneath the grand gilded arches of the House of Commons, beyond the carefully rehearsed parliamentary banter and the meticulously tailored suits, and a rather stark reality begins to emerge. We are currently witnessing an extraordinary piece of political illusion. On one side of the dispatch box, government ministers stand tall, offering grand declarations about generational investment, economic stabilisation, and public service renewal. On the other side, opposition backbenchers like Nigel Farage fire off sharp populist broadsides, mocking the spreadsheets and declaring the entire enterprise bankrupt before the ink has even dried. It is a delightful piece of theatre, really. But when you strip away the clever rhetoric, the carefully targeted tax freezes, and the theatrical outrage, what are we actually left with? Let us look at the fundamental numbers, because numbers, unlike politicians, have a terribly persistent habit of telling the truth. The official narrative promises us that grand state-led strategies will single-handedly revitalise our national infrastructure. We are told to applaud modest tweaks to fuel duties, minor concessions on draft beer, and localised funds for fixing potholes. These are classic political crowd pleasers, designed to give the impression of immediate relief. Yet, behind this polished presentation, the broader financial architecture tells a very different story. When market borrowing costs shift upward and bond yields react nervously to state spending plans, the underlying message from the global financial system is unmistakably clear. You cannot simply speak economic growth into existence through sheer optimism. State machinery attempting to pick financial winners has a rather long documented history of ending in administrative tears. When governments position themselves as master fund managers, attempting to direct vast pools of capital into favoured sectors, history suggests we ought to hold onto our wallets. Real economic dynamism has rarely been birthed in a committee room in Whitehall. If you are finding this analytical breakdown insightful, take a quick moment right now to subscribe to Britain Underneath, hit that notification bell, and take a deep breath, because staying truly informed in today's chaotic political landscape requires looking far past the surface headlines. consider the reality facing everyday enterprise across the United Kingdom. Small and medium business owners, the very people who take actual financial risks, employ local workforces, and generate genuine value, are consistently the ones asked to carry the heaviest burden.
It is extraordinarily easy for politicians who have spent their entire careers floating through policy think tanks, public administration, or European assemblies to talk about public investment. It is quite another thing to understand what risk capital actually means when your own life savings are on the line. When employment taxes rise, regulatory compliance expands, and operational costs surge, the small business owner does not get a government bailout. They simply shoulder the strain or quietly close their doors. Meanwhile, the broader macroeconomic picture remains quietly alarming. We hear constant political squabbling over public finance deficits, with each party blaming the other for leaving behind a fiscal black hole. But this partisan finger-pointing conveniently glosses over the truly colossal structural figures. Our national debt continues to hover at breathtaking heights, with annual interest payments alone swallowing up tens of billions of pounds that could otherwise fund hospitals, schools, or tax relief. Furthermore, when official growth forecasts project sluggish performance over the coming years, we must ask ourselves what that actually means for the average citizen. If national economic growth barely keeps pace with population changes, then wealth per person is not growing at all. In real terms, individual prosperity stagnates. Public services feel increasingly stretched, and the standard of living quietly declines. Pretending that minor policy adjustments will fix a deeply structural problem is not just naive, it is fundamentally misleading. What British politics desperately requires today is not more clever public relations, but a complete cultural shift toward valuing productivity, rewarding hard work, and encouraging authentic wealth creation. We have become far too comfortable relying on state intervention to solve every foundational issue, while ignoring the basic realities of fiscal discipline and market confidence. Please support our independent research by subscribing to Britain Underneath today. Your support truly helps this channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you deep, unfiltered commentary. Stay tuned, keep questioning the establishment, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss our upcoming deep dives on Britain Underneath.